What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going through 22 tips from Pixar on storytelling applied to startups so you can pitch more effectively to get the investment that you need. Now, if you're interested in hearing all this, stick with me right now and we'll get into it.
Ask Alex. Ask Alex. Because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, now you know. Yeah.
As I frequently talk about on this blog or my podcast, YouTube channel, you need to tell a story when you're pitching. And that's not just for money from investors. Telling stories is not the simplest thing for most people, unless you grow up in, say, a pub in Ireland, etc. So pointers never go amiss. Here's some from Pixar. Now, in 2011, a Pixar person called Emma Coates tweeted 22 storytelling aphorisms that were then compiled into a list and circulated as Pixar's 22 rules of storytelling. She said that the tweets were a mix of things learned from directors and co-workers at Pixar, listening to writers and directors talk about the craft, and via trial and error in the making of my own films. Now, if you really want to dig into these tips, more from the perspective of filmmaking, but if you're interested in learning the whole storytelling craft, why not? Then some other Pixar dude took those 20 points and then really dug into them. Okay, so you should check that out if you're interested. I'll put a link towards it in the comments or show notes for you. Okay. Now I'm going to explain some tips in startup terms when pitching investors. The list of these 22 will be towards the end. But I'm just going to pick the ones which I think were particularly applicable. So, key tips in storytelling. You pitch to hire staff. The only commonality here is that you're selling to get something that you want. Each audience is buying something different though, and so they need to hear what they want to hear. When you're pitching to an investor, you need to think about this audience specifically. You aren't trying to get them to buy your product. They want to buy into your company and its prospects. So don't write what you think is interesting in your deck, and don't pitch what you think is interesting in a meeting. Say what you think investors want to hear, figuratively speaking. They want to know why you started the company, that there's a big market, yada, 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 right? Next point. Once upon a time, there was every day, one day, because of that, until finally, right? Great pitches tell a story that engages with the audience. This is an exercise you can use to structure your own story. Obviously, you aren't going to say once upon a time, but you get the picture. Maybe stories are just a data with a soul. Someone called Brené Brown. Now, next point. You admire a character for trying more than for just their successes. Investors want you, the protagonist, to win. Well, if they invest anyway. If they invest in a competitor, they probably want you to lose. All startups start out as the underdog seeking to battle Goliath. Startups are all crap shows though. Everyone does and will continue to do stupid things. VCs know this as they either were a founder themselves and so they get it, or they had a load of portfolio companies that are sideways deals. You are not going to be the only startup in the world that's pivoted or made an almost grave error. Share what you've learned from how you failed. Weave how you've overcome adversity to get to where you are today. It helps them to relate to your struggles and marvel at your resilience. Put another way, if you share with investors the stupid things that you did, they're happy you aren't going to learn. They're happy that you've learned from mistakes, and you're not going to make them again and waste their money. You wasted someone else's money or your time. You are the lead character of your story. You're battling against the odds. You have a 0.00067% chance of an exit. Facing competitors and with your back against the wall, you aren't profitable. So you have, yourself the fabulous foundations and makings of a great story to tell, right? Give the investors, a hero to root for. Next, focus. Combine characters, hop over detours. You'll feel like you're losing valuable stuff, but it sets you free. When I was younger, I, like you, had no freaking clue what I was doing when I was writing pitch decks. I thought I had like one shot to write everything about my startup, and if it wasn't on paper, it didn't count. That's rubbish. I would write like dense 40-page decks that no one would really want to read, and I didn't really want to write, but I thought I had to. So just don't. Great pitches say just enough to captivate the attention of investors. Once you have their attention, you can share more. If you have 10 points to make, write the 3 most important ones. If investors want to know more, share some more when they ask, right? They'll want to know more and they'll ask questions, which is why you need to listen, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth. When you've written your deck, go over it like a word Nazi and remove everything you don't really need. Listen to this frog quote by some guy called Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. Think about that for a second. A good example is to focus on what you are doing now, not all the things you want to do. This keeps your story focused so you are easier to understand. Later in the story, you can talk about expansion or whatever, building on the foundation that you set with them. Next, what's the essence of your story? The most economic telling of it. If you know that, you can build out from there. Now, this is linked quite closely to the next point. Basically, figure out what kind of story you need to tell. If you're at Series B, it's a growth story with stats. If you're in early stage, it's about your insight into an industry problem and how you're going to solve it, or have proven there's a problem at all. Next, figure out how you want to tell that story and what you want to focus on. What's your central thesis? From there, you can build out the story and figure out what points to make to prove that the story, prove out the story in a sort of logical manner. Next, finish your story. Let go, even if it's not perfect. In an ideal world, you have both, but move on. Do better next time. Firstly, finish your pitch deck. There is no such thing as a perfect pitch deck, which is ironic because I started a company called Perfect Pitch Deck, which does pitch decks. The perfect deck is one that is merely good enough and done. Secondly, you will get your deck done faster, and it will be better if you first decide what you want to say. Now, the way I write pitch decks is to outline the story first and then read it to see if it captures what the founders want to say. If it's not right, who cares? It's only like 9 bullet points or something. It's not like you've gone and written a tomb of slides that you don't want to kill now because of like the sunk cost of all the time you spent. Bushing out a first draft really helps you to review what you do and like what to say, right? It's the process that matters, which ties to this next point. No work is ever wasted. If it's not working, let go and move on. It'll come back around to be useful later. Sometimes you learn more by what doesn't work than by what does. Kill your darlings. Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found like 10,000 ways that won't work." All those failings help to get to the right place. Maybe you did a bunch of work analyzing SEO search volume and then some dick like me tells you not to put it in your deck because it's not core. You get annoyed with yourself for wasting time, and probably me for telling you as the messenger. But if a VC asks about your search volume, as you said, search is key to your go-to-market strategy, well, now you have the answer prepared, right? Slide it over and show it. Now, next point. Why must you tell this story? What's the belief burning within you that your story feeds off? That's the heart of it. This is a great point. Why did you start your company? Why do you need to solve this problem? What is driving you? Why matters, and investors want to know. Pixar director Pete Docter explains, What you're trying to do when you tell a story is to write about an event in your life that made you feel some particular way. And what you're trying to do when you tell a story is to get the audience to have that same feeling. You just need to know yourself first. Just wanting to make money may be the truth, but best not to admit it right now. Make up something emotive. If you're a startup mercenary, you can lie, it's fine. Now, for you to really resonate with investors, you need to know yourself. Self-knowledge and awareness are at the root of all great storytelling. When you're authentic, people can tell. It's like smiling on the phone. People can sense it. This, above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night, the day, thou canst then be false to any man. By William Shakespeare, Act 1, Scene 3 of Hamlet. Okay, now I'm going to go to share all the 22 tips on storytelling from Pixar for you. You ready? Let's bust through them. You admire a character for trying more than for their own successes. You got to keep in mind what's interesting to you as an audience, not what's fun to do as a writer. They can be very different. Now 3, trying for theme is important, but you won't see what the story is actually about till you're at the very end of it. Now rewrite. Once upon a time there was a blank, every day blank, one day blank, because of that blank, because of that blank, until finally something happens, right? Next, focus. Combine characters, hop over detours. You'll feel like you're losing valuable stuff, but it sets you free. What is your character good at, comfortable with? Throw the polar opposite at them. Challenge them. How do they deal? Come up with your ending before you figure out the middle. Seriously, endings are hard. Get yours working up front. Finish your story. Let go, even if it's not perfect. In an ideal world, you have both, but move on. Do better next time. When you're stuck, make a list of what wouldn't happen next. Lots of time, the material to get you unstuck will show up. Pull apart the stories you like. What you like in them is part of you. You've got to recognize it before you can use it. Putting it on paper lets you start fixing it. If it stays in your head, a perfect idea, you'll never share it with anyone. Discount the first thing that comes to mind, and then the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Get the obvious out of the way. Surprise yourself. Give your characters opinions. Passive, malleable might seem likable to you as a right, but it's poison to the audience. Why must you tell this story? What's the belief burning within you that your story feeds off? That's the heart of it. If you were your character in this situation, how would you feel? Honesty lends credibility to unbelievable situations. What are the stakes? Give us a reason to root for the character. What happens if they don't succeed? Stack the odds against. No work is ever wasted. If it's not working, let go and move on. It'll come back around to be useful later. You have to know yourself. The difference between doing your best and bussing. Story is testing, not refining. Coincidences to get characters into trouble are great. Coincidences to get them out of it are cheating. Exercise. Take the building blocks of a movie you dislike. How do you rearrange them into what you do like? You gotta identify with your situation characters. You can't just write. Cool. What would make you act that way? What's the essence of your story? The most economical telling of it. If you know that, you can build out from there. Now, to conclude this, pitch decks are pitching, and they're a combination of both art and science. These points won't fix your business, but they will help you illuminate it in a much more compelling way. They can really make the difference between funded and, bootstrapped by choice. Okay guys, so which points did you think were interesting? Reach out to me and let me know in the comments. All right, I'll see you guys. I hope you really enjoyed that. If you did, please share it or like it, all that cool stuff. Bye.